Believe it or not, the first question on some job interviews in industrial trades is, can you read a measuring tape? Now that may sound silly to some of you old-timers, but you'd be surprised how many younger folks never make it past that first question because they have no idea what they're doing with this simple tool. So I'm going to show you how to teach a poor ignorant child in your life. Let's start with a couple of things that are unique to measuring tapes. This is the hook, or the tab, or whatever you want to call it. It moves back and forth, hopefully an equal amount to the thickness of the hook, so you can make both inside and outside measurements accurately. If yours doesn't move much, or it moves too much, your tape won't be accurate. In that case, you might do what they call burning an inch. That means starting your measurement not at the hook, but on the 1 inch line, and then you subtract that inch from your final measurement. That eliminates any error from the hook, but it prevents you from using its handy hooking feature. And you have to remember to remove that inch. If you're framing a house, just use the hook. That little error won't matter. But if you need a very high level of accuracy, you might want to burn an inch. Now let's talk about the scale. This one is in inches, which is something that I and 90% of our audience is familiar with. If you're into metric, that's cool. But I don't need a bunch of smarmy comments about inches versus metric today. Let's just give it a rest for this video so those whom the video does apply to can learn something. The big numbers are obviously inches. These are broken down into halves, quarters, eighths, sixteenths. That is halves, quarters, eighths, and sixteenths, not 4 and 3 little marks past the big mark. If you say that in my shop, you're going to get thumped in the head. The proper way to read that measurement is 4 and 11 sixteenths. Now how do I know that's 4 and 11 sixteenths when they aren't labeled? I know because the 16th lines are the shortest ones. Then the eighths are a bit longer and the quarters are a bit longer than that, and so on. So if my measurement falls on one of these shortest marks, I know right away that I'm dealing with sixteenths. If my measurement falls on one of the next longest lines, I know right away that my measurement will be in eighths, and so on. You don't have to do the math, you just have to know what the 4 line lengths mean. And I didn't even have to count all those sixteenths to come up with 11 sixteenths. I took a shortcut. Any idiot knows that there are 16 sixteenths in an inch, right? And I can see I'm past the half inch, so that's 8 of my sixteenths right there. I merely add the last 3, and I'm at 11 sixteenths. Let's try another one. This is 5 and 7/8. I can see that instantly because it's the last eighth mark in the inch. There are obviously 8 eighth marks in the inch, so 1 less is 7/8. Likewise, this is 13 sixteenths. I didn't have to count 13 little marks to get here. I just know that there are 16 sixteenths in an inch, so I count back 3. Again, the key is to be able to identify the increment you're dealing with based on the length of the line, so you know if you're dealing with sixteenths, eighths, quarters, or half. Then you count forward or back, not from the beginning of the inch, but from the nearest half inch. In time, it will be second nature, and you won't be counting at all. The fraction's just going to come to you. Now this applies to just about any measuring scale, not just a measuring tape. In fact, measuring tapes are most often used in construction trades or when absolute accuracy just isn't required. For that reason, you may hear someone say something like 4 and 5/8 strong rather than 4 and 11 sixteenths. They're ignoring the finest marks on the tape and saying it's just a little more than the nearest eighth because sixteenths are meaningless when you're nailing 2x4s into a house. But don't try that on a job interview because everyone should know the proper way to read a measuring tape. Ridge carbide is the best kept secret in woodworking. I kid you not, their saw blades are second to none, both in quality and performance, and they're less expensive than the other ultra premium brands. Do yourself a favor, use the link and the discount code below this video. You will never go back to cheap blades again. Wait, don't go yet. If you're new here, please subscribe and remember to ring the bell. I would really appreciate that. Give us a thumbs up, or better yet, leave us a comment. I always read them. And be sure to check out the latest issue of Stumpy Nubs Woodworking Journal. It's always packed with tips, tricks, and tutorials designed to make you a better woodworker.